Hello, everybody. My name is Paula Parejo, and I'm from the BRCGS Americas team. Thank you so much for joining us today at the BRCGS and Bureau Veritas webinar on the gluten-free consumer and gluten-free certification. We're excited to cover this topic in honor of Celiac Awareness Month, regardless of what type of production that you're doing in food. We are really happy to be covering this topic. Gluten-free production is not a luxury, it's a necessity for many different people. Approximately 1% of the world's population have celiac disease, and that's not including those who might have additional allergens or other gluten sensitivities. We're going to uncover what the consumer market needs and how you as a site can contribute to support this demographic while offering your own customers a competitive edge with different business opportunities. I'd like to give a little bit of a background of our organizations and presenters who have created this content for you today. I'm going to begin with BRCGS. For those of you who don't know BRCGS, we are a GFSI benchmark program owner in the food safety industry, where we have standards across the supply chain and are well known for our standards being rigorous. Our well-known standard is food safety, but we also have standards in consumer products, packaging, retail, storage and distribution, agents and brokers, ethical, plant-based, and gluten-free. BRCGS is a leading brand and consumer protection organization used by over 29,000 certified suppliers in over 130 countries, with certifications issued through a global network of accredited certification bodies. Bureau Veritas is a global leader in the testing, inspection, and certification sector, with a network of food testing laboratories and an extensive portfolio of food certification services. Bureau Veritas is a viable option for any testing or certification needs, including those related to the gluten-free standard, or what we also like to call the gluten-free certification program. So why GFCP? GFCP again stands for the Gluten-Free Certification Program. This program will give you the tools and guidance to build a food safety system that has dedicated production for gluten-free products, ensuring that you are producing both safe and authentic gluten-free foods. So between BRCGS and Bureau Veritas, together we can help support your technical needs for a commercial and ethical initiative to help support a demographic that needs gluten-free foods for their health and well-being. A little bit about the presenters. So starting with Manish Sebastian. Manish is a senior account manager at the BRCGS Americas team. Manish has over 15 years of international sales experience in a very diversified market. He's worked in India, Dubai, Ireland, and Canada, working with several different industries, some of these being technology sales, financial services, telecommunications, private health insurance, and software. Manish has a degree in business management and a master's in business administration from India. He's been with BRCGS for over a year. Barry Meikle is a technical services coordinator at BRCGS, also on the Americas team. He has a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Health from Cardiff Metropolitan University in 2015 and spent the next 2 years with the Food Standards Agency in Wales. Barry immigrated to Canada with his wife and son in November of 2017, finding employment with the Allergen Control Group. With ACG, he was responsible for providing technical support and guidance in relation to the gluten-free certification program to customers, auditors, and certification bodies. ACG was acquired by BRCGS in mid-2018, and since then he's continued with his role here, but has expanded his knowledge to be able to provide support for Food Safety Issue 8, agents and brokers, the plant-based standard, and of course, gluten-free. Barry will be available for the Q&A period after the webinar. Chris Middleton leads the Food Safety Certification team at Bureau Veritas North America as the Food Program Manager. In addition, he is qualified as an auditor for a number of different food safety and quality standards, including BRCGS and GFCP. Chris participates in a number of different technical working groups related to food safety and has over 15 years of experience conducting audits for the food industry. He truly is an exceptional auditor. He is devoted and passionate about delivering value in the audits that he conducts. And without further ado, I will be passing this on to Manish.
Thank you, Paula. Good afternoon, everyone. Let's start things off by going over an overview of BRCGS gluten-free certification program. As we go through the presentation, I will go in more depth about the certain parts of the GFCP certification program. BRCGS is a pioneer in the gluten-free certification program, and our certification program is globally recognized and endorsed by leading celiac associations in the world. In North America, our program is endorsed by Beyond Celiac and Canadian Celiac Association. Our certification program is site-based management system to verify and validate the authentic, safe production of gluten-free products, free from the intentional addition and cross-contamination of hidden sources of gluten. The key market drivers are people who have celiac disease, people who have digestive health issues or sensitive to gluten. The most significant or the largest market drivers are people who are avoiding gluten from their diet because of their lifestyle choice. As we celebrate May as a Celiac Awareness Month, it is important to understand what is gluten. Gluten is a protein found in several grains such as barley, rye, triticale, wheat, kamut, and oats. There are specially processed gluten-free oats are available in the market. Gluten is mainly responsible for the classic texture of the dough, as well as it is a binding agent that helps foods to maintain its shapes. The consumer market for the gluten-free products started with celiac group, but it goes far beyond that today. 1 in every 3 consumers is actively avoiding or reducing gluten in their daily diet, which is driven by 3 different groups illustrated here. As I mentioned earlier, there are 3 consumer groups for the gluten-free diet. Let me get into each group in detail. The first group, people who have celiac disease. 1 in every 100 people have celiac disease, and majority of the people do not know they have it. The only treatment for the disease is a gluten-free diet. It's a serious autoimmune disease triggered by gluten consumption. When someone with celiac disease eat even tiny amount of gluten, their immune system attacks the lining of a small intestine. The resulting intestinal damage can cause malnutrition and conditions such as osteoporosis. The second largest group is people who have digestive health issues or sensitive to gluten. Gluten sensitivity is not a condition that is currently well defined within the medical community. It is neither an autoimmune reaction like a celiac disease or an allergic reaction in which the immune system produces antibodies. It can be self-diagnosed, and treatment like celiac community is a gluten-free diet. According to Dr. Alessio Fasano, the director of Harvard Medical School Celiac Research Program, 18 million, 6% of the American population has gluten sensitivity. Look at these numbers. There's a great demand for gluten-free products in the market. The lifestyle choice group represents the most significant number of gluten-free consumers. As for the studies, 22% of the population is avoiding gluten from their diet. They do not have celiac disease or gluten sensitivity. Eliminating gluten from one's diet is perceived as a healthier choice for weight management. Some of the studies found that an added benefit of people who go for gluten-free diet end up in having more energy. Let's look into the gluten-free global market opportunity. The global gluten-free product market will continue to see the growth over the coming years. When we look at the global food certification market on the left, over the next 7 years, this will grow to 15.9 billion, which is a 7% compound annual growth rate. Then looking specifically at the global gluten-free product market size, projected to reach 43.65 billion in 2027, which is a 9.2% compound annual growth rate. The rising prevalence of lifestyle-related diseases has favored driving product demand, increasing instances of diseases, most notably chronic and non-communicable diseases leading to disability and death, have bolstered the demand for the gluten-free products. The United States is one of the major consumer markets for the gluten-free products, and North America accounted for the largest revenue share of 40.61% in 2019. These numbers speaks that there's a lot of opportunities for the companies who are not manufacturing gluten-free products start producing the product for meeting this market demand. When we look at the gluten-free product market, these are some of the growing categories are such as bakery products, dairy and dairy alternatives, meat and meat alternatives, condiments, spreads, seasoning, dessert and ice creams, prepared foods, pasta, rice, and baby foods. Let me explain to you why BRCGS is better than any other certification program in the marketplace. There are few certification programs available in the marketplace, and most of them are not accredited, and their certification program is based on a final product testing. BRCGS certification program is based on the management system approach, which means preventative controls are put in place to control the gluten from the first step into the manufacturing process through all the way to the finished product. And our program promotes the use of HACCP principles to prevent failure systematically rather than to rely on the end product testing. Gluten-free management system approach is superior to end product testing because the detection and the quantification of the gluten in a food metrics are challenging. Let me explain to you some of the key challenges with the final product testing. Some products are more difficult to analyze than others, such as food containing high amount of polyphenols or tannins, highly processed foods, fermented and hydrolyzed foods. The second challenge could be the gluten might not be homogeneously distributed in all samples, products like bakery or prepared meats. The another common challenge is grain that appears to be inherently gluten-free is still may have traces of gluten if contaminated, and this can be difficult to detect as it is not generally well distributed within testing samples. All these causes could lead into a false negative testing result. Testing is useful for validation and verification, but it is important that preventative approach is used to ensure gluten does not enter into the system. A management system approach will focus on incoming materials, on processing steps, in addition to the finished product to better manage the risk of the contamination. Studies have indicated that 91% of the consumer buying decisions are impacted by third-party verification, and 76 of them prefer certified products associated with the Celiac Association. As you can see the trademark, our program is endorsed by Beyond Celiac and Canadian Celiac Associations, and the customers have the choice to use the trademark. This will help the brand to have a higher consumer acceptance, build trust between consumer and the brand to make a quick, reliable purchasing decisions. Let me explain to you how do you get certified. The manufacturing site owners will register for the program through BRCGS website. Site owners can download free gluten-free standard from BRCGS bookshop and the self-assessment checklist from the BRCGS website. BRCGS will prepare the program license agreement for the site and for the brand owners. If you are a private label manufacturer and making for more than one brand, each brand owners have to sign a separate brand program license agreement. Once the site agreed to proceed with the certification and paid the annual license fee, site owners can contact certification bodies for conducting the third-party audit. There are two options available for the audit: standalone audit and the combined audit. The focus of the standalone audit is only on the standard requirements. The standalone audits are available to the sites, those who already certified with any of the GFSI benchmark scheme or any GFSI global market plan such as BRCGS START program. The combined audit, the focus of the combined audit is in conjunction with any of the GFSI benchmark scheme or any GFSI global market plan such as BRCGS START program. Once the site is past its audit, site or the brand owners can work with our label approval department for the usage of the trademark. To just give everyone a scale of where BRCGS with this program, here are the some of the brands like Kirkland from Costco, Walmart, Maple Leafs, Grain Millers, Dairy Foods, Thai Kitchens. These are the brands we are already working in US and Canadian marketplace. Thank you.
And I'm going to pass it along to Chris.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Paula. And Manish, great information. Fantastic to hear. I can tell you on my side of things before we jump into the top non-conformances side of things. I have a nephew who has celiac disease, so this is obviously close to my heart and is very important for me on that front to ensure that his health is taken into account for these. So it makes me feel good when I go out and do these audits that I know that I'm impacting it on that side. So I know some people really like to know, how can we make our gluten-free management system effective? What do we need to do? So a good thing to always do is let's look at what our top non-conformances are, and we can learn from previous mistakes that maybe some other people have made, and we can amend and avoid those on the future. So what we've got on our next slide coming up here is a graph of the current non-conformances that were pulled out for issue 6, or issue 3, I should say. Sorry, I saw 6 at the bottom of the screen there, and it made me think that. So you can see here, there are a nice list of a long list of what those non-conformances that currently exist. I know the numbers are a little bit unknown. We're going to get into some key focuses here. This data was extracted strictly for issue 3. So it did progress from issue 2 over to issue 3, which was discussed. So we have about 69 total audits that this is all based on that end. So what we're going to do for time purposes, because we can go on for hours about this stuff, is we're going to try and focus on a few key ones. So if we kind of highlight it and we move to this next slide, you'll see these clear items that we are going to be focusing on. And that's going to be these top 5. You might be asking yourself, well, Chris, what are those? I don't know what those clauses are. Well, thank you very much for asking. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on and we're going to discuss about each of these. So if we go to the next slide, we'll kind of describe these a little bit more. And you can see our main ones here are prerequisite programs. Now, if you look at clause 2.1 or element 2.1, depending on the way you want to talk about it, it is a very general statement about the design of the prerequisite programs. There was discussion about already being certified to BRCGS Food or BRC Start, and those describe a lot of the details of what needs to be put in place for prerequisite programs. Expectations that we're looking at here is more for how is the gluten-free management system intertwined into that? How is gluten brought into those? And are we actually following the PRPs that are currently in place, because this is a management system audit. This isn't just a product testing audit. Next is internal audits. We're going to talk about that a bit. I'm going to focus on that one. You can see that those two are getting close to about a third of the audits that we're hitting on those fronts. So it's really important on the internal audit side that we're looking at the gluten-free management system, and we'll talk about that a bit more as well. There is a requirement within the standard that is for a gluten-free management system team leader. Might be asking, what is that? What do I have to do? We'll kind of expand upon it, because there are some key requirements that are needed within the standard to meet the requirements and to ensure the continued implementation and maintenance of the gluten-free management system. Then we have a recall requirements. This is a bit of a challenge for some people, because there are more little subtle nuances within the standard that need to be met in order to be in compliance with the GFCP. So we'll talk about those as well. And then last is gluten awareness training. So some of the things that gets caught up here, and we'll talk about it, is people thinking that it's just allergen training. It really isn't. There's a little bit more that we need to look at. There's a bit more detail that's required. So when we get to future slides, we'll kind of talk about that. But to start off, let's kind of expand a bit upon clause 2.1 here and move on. So one thing you'll see when you do look at the standard and it details, you're going to see that there's a nice laundry list of the actual PRPs that need to be considered within your audit. It just states when you look at the standard itself that these PRPs and the control measures, monitoring, etc., have to be clearly documented and included when you are developing your gluten-free management system. So some of the gaps that are found here may be the gluten controls aren't considered when you are looking at the development of these PRPs. It may also be instances where there may just be gaps within there. There may be challenges with walls, floors, ceilings. Maybe there's a challenge with the maintenance programs. Have we considered allergen controls within the maintenance programs? Are there gaps within the pest control program? So those are highlighted here, which tends to be a good reason as to why they are brought up. It is a lot of self-maintenance that you want to look at on that front, which is going to tie into our next slide in a couple seconds. But you will see that there is some control that you need to be monitoring, but keeping an eye on those PRPs, ensuring that they're fully documented, they reflect what you are doing on a regular basis, and there are no gaps at that time will help prevent challenges that you have within this part of the audit itself. So saying that, a good thing is we'll move on to the next slide, and our next non-conformance is ensuring that you are always having an effective internal auditing program. But what you can do on your end here is looking at the controls being effectively implemented, as we talked about. It's going to talk about it on the internal audit side. Are you outlining and communicating these items within your group? So this is a gap we do see when we're doing these audits. Leadership knows, sometimes supervisors know, the people that are without in the plant aren't really aware of what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. We need to ensure that's effectively communicated and done. And then again, when you're reviewing your gluten-free management system, are you reviewing these PRPs, and is there any potential threat to the gluten-free management system? The most important thing, I think, for any management system that you can do other than setting up and ensuring the controls is your self-monitoring. This will prevent a lot of your gaps. Ensuring that your internal audit program is extremely robust in nature, ensuring that you are continually monitoring yourself, things like that, that is something that needs to be done. It really think beyond just doing a once-a-year activity, that it's just done for the heck of it. Make sure that you are as detailed as possible. You want to challenge yourself as much as possible when you're doing these and not think of it just as a pencil whipping opportunity. So the other thing that we need to focus on when we're doing these for the gluten-free management system is remembering that we are doing an internal audit on the gluten-free management system and the requirements of the GFCP. So ensure that you are expanding upon that. Are the people that are conducting your audits, are they adequately trained? So do we have training internally on the internal audit procedures, and do they know what good looks like? That's a real gap. We end up finding sometimes when the internal auditors, they're so used to seeing bad, they don't know what good looks like. We need to ensure that those people know what good looks like so that they can evaluate it when they're on site on that end. And the other question that you have to ask yourself sometimes is, are we identifying conformity as we're going through? Are we documenting the evidence as an external auditor would, that they have looked at the particular samples of records. They've done traceability challenges. You're interviewing employees, et cetera, to demonstrate effective implementation of the internal audit program. So on our next slide, you'll see we're going to talk about some of the items that we can be looking at on that side, which is, are you interviewing your employees as you're going through? I tell you, on my experience, and this goes across the board when we're doing in different GFSI audit standards and even within GFCP audits that I have, many times the internal audits don't actually include an interview of the employees to understand their understanding, their comprehension, their competency, etc. I find that that is a gap in a number of times when we're doing internal audits. So expanding your internal audit program to make it that much more robust and involving everybody on the floor. So the other thing is, are you doing full traceability challenges? Think about the vertical audit that we talk about within the BRCGS world. That is something that I really would recommend to almost everybody on this call for your facility, for your own facility, is conduct your own vertical audits. Follow that trail. That's going to help you out. And then if you see conformance, great. If you see non-conformance, expand upon that maybe. Maybe that's just a one-off, but keep on sampling. Make it robust on that end. And ensure that you are sitting out in the plant and watching items when you're doing internal audits. So this is a gap I find a lot when we're going through and doing internal audits and inspections. We have people that are so used to being in the plant and walking around, they don't sit back and watch and follow flows. Ensure that you're scheduling these internal audit activities or these inspection activities at the most high-risk times. You're out there when there's product changeovers from a gluten to a gluten-free product. You're going out there and verifying when there's label changes, things along those lines. Make sure that you're doing that in your own internal audit program. And the last thing that you want to make sure is ensure your corrective actions, do they make sense? Are they appropriate? Are you doing root cause analyses to determine what is the true root cause? A key gap here that I run into more often than not is the root cause analysis drills down to training wasn't adequate. Training wasn't adequate. That is not always going to be your root cause. That may be something that was a contributing factor, but there's going to be more from there. Look into things like 5 whys, Ishikawa diagrams, cause maps. Look at those things and develop a robust root cause analysis program that is embedded into internal audits, and that'll help you prevent this situation from recurring on a continuous basis. Moving on from there, let's kind of talk a bit about the gluten-free management system team leader. So the first point that's kind of on this top slide, this doesn't mean that the gluten-free management system team leader cannot be the food safety team leader or the HACCP coordinator. They can be. It can be somebody different though, but it's not automatically assigned to that person. And what is meant from there is there needs to be clear competency as it comes to the gluten-free management system that is in place and the controls that are established. What needs to be demonstrated is there has to be demonstration that appropriate training has been completed. And thankfully, BRCGS has come to the rescue on that front and provided an extremely thorough and detailed training that any gluten-free management system team leader can complete. Now, it's not mandated that this specific training needs to be completed. An equivalent training can be done. However, there's a few caveats here. You need to ensure that if you are doing an equivalent training, you are able to demonstrate that it clearly includes gluten awareness and that labeling requirements are being met within there. If there's any questions on that front, strongly recommend you contact BRCGS for confirmation that the training that you are looking at using for this gluten-free management team leader, that it is effective and it is appropriate for the level of control on that end. Now, that's the training side. If we look at our next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about what else we need to see and what may be some of the gaps that are found with these gluten-free management system team leaders. And simply what is found is sometimes there's competency issues. We did the training, but we don't understand the whys of the training. We don't understand the whys of the programs. We need to understand why we're doing it. Remember, we don't luck into food safety. We don't luck into it. We need to understand why we are doing it. So ensure that you are able to demonstrate that when you're doing it. When you are asked by an auditor, why do we design a program that way? What is the reasoning for our controls? It should be clearly communicated as to why that was done. And that is a gap that we find sometimes. The other thing to ensure is understanding that all the criteria within the gluten-free certification program is understood. You need to understand the standard as well as your own controls on that end. And those are sometimes gaps that we find. If it's a demonstration that there's a number of non-conformances within the management system that don't line up with the gluten-free certification program, it's probably clear that maybe there's an issue when it comes to competency of that person or understanding. So you need to ensure that you understand the standard as well. And the last thing that is extremely important, and I haven't run into this too frequently in my audits, but I have seen it once or twice, is the person that is tagged as the gluten-free management system team leader really doesn't have authority to make any changes to programs or policies. They're simply there to occupy a seat. They need to be able to direct the bus as well. So you got to make sure that they do have reasonable authority to initiate change where it is required. And one of those kind of examples would be if there was a recall. So speaking of that, let's move to our next slide and talk about recalls on that side, on this end. Some of these challenges within recalls are for many of the sites that do not already have certification to a GFSI standard at this point. There's a lot of additional subtle requirements that are required when you are dealing with recalls. So it's key that you understand everything that is required in the standard. Stepping back again, going to the gluten-free management system team leader, talking about competencies and understanding of what they need to do. This is a good example. You have to know that BRCGS needs to be contacted within 24 hours of the release of an official recall or withdrawal. We need to understand that. We need to know that that needs to be in place. That needs to be embedded in the program and understood. There needs to be clear documentation of the email addresses that you need to contact those people at. Ensure that's embedded in there. That's in your key crisis management people or contacts that are built into the recall program. You need to ensure, and this is a key point, this is a question that gets brought up a lot when we're doing these audits because we have sites that are doing both gluten-free and gluten-containing items. There needs to be a challenge and test done at least annually on a gluten-free product. Now, key point, you're going to have something that is called a Schedule A when you're in these, if you are not already in the gluten-free certification program. Ideally, the product should be selected from one of those products on there. If not, select a similar gluten-free product that you have, or if you have a free from product, you're able to demonstrate it on that front. So remember, going back, thinking about your vertical audit and that's why we're looking at it. You want to make sure that everything is involved so you can demonstrate all the controls if needed. But those are the products that need to be covered within that recall exercise and is a gap that's found at points. It's a simple one. We can think of it as a low-hanging fruit item, but you need to make sure you have that listed within your processes for your mock recall exercises that are conducted. Key things to remember here as well, and this is a bit of a, sometimes it gets forgotten. You need to ensure market withdrawals are included. This is not just class 1, class 2. Remember the program that we're in. So remember it's market withdrawals. Ensuring that we have that annual test that we just talked about and ensuring that all your regulators and your certification body information is current. This is missed a lot. So ensure that you have those contacts updated on that end. And one thing where you can ensure where it's at is ensuring that proper training, right? Which kind of pieces in to our next slide on that end is talking about gluten awareness training. Now, as we're talking about this, you're going to see there's a nice laundry list of items that you have to cover here. And the one thing you're probably going to say is, whoa, that's a lot that needs to be talked about, Chris. Holy smokes. Does every single person need to be going through this? No, you don't. It needs to be applicable for those people, but your training programs for the gluten-free management system, again, touching on that gluten-free management system, not just the gluten-free product, needs to cover all these items. This is going to help all your employees that are involved in the process, all of the leadership, everybody involved within the organization to understand the whys we are doing it, the importance of the programs and the design of the programs. This will help ensure that there are going to be no non-conformances as it leads to traffic patterns. Are you clearly verifying that employees are understanding these on this front? That's something that you have to ensure that you do when you're looking at things like traffic patterns. Are you looking at equipment designs for effective cleaning to remove gluten in that? It should already be embedded in your programs, but are you doing that and considering gluten on that end, on that front? So when you kind of go to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about the design of your programs as to what you need to do. Last point is the key thing I want you to focus on when you're talking about these, and these are gaps that we see on a regular basis in our audits, is we have a cookie cutter style training for all employees across everywhere. Now, the challenge is you'll have people that may be involved in lab learn very different than the people that are on the floor making the product. Design your program so it's effective. It doesn't necessarily have to be classroom training that you need to do. Maybe you want to look at something where you go out on the floor and it's almost a direct observation of the task being done with people in small groups. Are you challenging your personnel with a competency assessment? And is it an appropriate competency assessment? So some could be through a test. Some can be through observation. Some can be through interviews. Look at what works best for those employees or for those positions, ensuring that those items are designed effectively on that end and they make sense for your organization. There's some great tools out there for training. There are some fantastic items. There's training that BRCGS does have for your industry training that you can use for your employees and assist, but make sure it's not just general for gluten-free products and how to make a gluten-free product in your control. What is the training for your internal controls as well? So ensuring on that end. Now, those are our top 5. One thing that we'll look at next is seeing some other NCs that you probably want to keep an eye on. Things that you want to look at. Look at your testing programs. So are they effective? Do they make sense for what is in place, what you're doing at the site and what you need to get? One thing that the GFCP and BRCGS did a fantastic job of is providing great detailed information within Appendix 5 of the standard. It's one of the few that has something like this. It is fantastic. I would recommend anybody to get that, even if you're not going to go through with the standard, which I strongly recommend you do, but get that standard or read that. It has some fantastic information that talks about what types of tests you would use, your potential matrices, things like that. Really, really good stuff within there. So make sure that you're looking at it to see that your tests that you're using for validation and verification are effective. So ensuring that your HACCP program is clear. So this is a key gap across almost all food safety management systems that I see when we're talking about HACCP programs. But focusing on the gluten side, are you considering gluten specifically as a hazard? Remember, it is a bit different slightly than allergens at points. Just stating allergens in general doesn't necessarily provide all those controls that you need to look at and what needs to be done at points. So you need to make sure you look at that and include it specifically within your HACCP program. And then also ensuring that your management reviews are involved. This is a gap that is run into on a regular basis when we're doing GFCP audits, that we find that people are not including the actual performance of the gluten-free management system in their food safety management system or quality management system reviews. Ensuring that it's detailed, clear, you know the performance, products, opportunities, things like that. Ensuring that your inputs are clearly documented, and do not forget to document those outputs that you're going to need. That is a gap. It's just like your internal audit program. It is not just a pencil whipping exercise. There's a reason that you are doing these. This is going to help you determine, do you need more resources or a modification of your resources to ensure that you're meeting the intended outputs of your gluten-free management system. So with all that being said, kind of move to our next slide and talk about some points of action that I'd recommend all of you kind of start taking into account and moving forward with. Number 1, take the industry training. I know we talked about the equivalent standards. Yes, that is acceptable. Yes, that would not be a non-conformance in an audit if you were doing it. But I would recommend doing the specific BRCGS gluten-free certification program industry training that's available, because it'll help you not only understand the whys of control, but also the standard itself. 2 birds with 1 stone on that end. So again, we talked about if you do have a different training to use, contact BRCGS though to see if that is appropriate and would be accepted in an audit. So remember that this standard is more than just the allergen program. This is not just another little asterisk within that program and we're fine. The gluten-free certification program is an evaluation of a management system. Ensure that it is detailed. Treat it that way. This is a gap we find that people think it's just a quick pencil whipping exercise and it's a little bullet point I need to put in my training program and in the allergen control program. It is not. This is an interaction of the entire management system at the facility and how that management system is going to ensure that we have fit product for people that have either gluten intolerance, gluten sensitivities, or have celiac disease. So keep an eye on those things, ensuring that that's done. What other kind of bullet points? Let's see what else we got on our next slide here. Making sure that your employees are aware of the gluten-free management system. Talked about training. Look back at those top non-conformances. If you even look at those, they're all almost interconnected in a way, right? How can you ensure that? Internal auditing, challenging your people. I focused on interviewing your employees, watching them on the floor when you're doing those internal audits. That's going to help you determine, are they competent? Ask people if they understand the whys. Don't just tell them that you have to do it this way. Understanding the why is going to help them out exponentially more than just telling them how to do something. Once you know how to do it and the why you're doing it, they're probably going to do it a lot more on that end. Biggest thing I would say too as well, and this is going to be my last takeaway for you, is internal audits. Robust, robust, robust. Challenge yourselves. Spread out your audits if you need to. Big gap that we see is everybody says, oh, I got to do my internal audit. I've got a day. This is your management system that you are 365 days a year doing. You can spread this out throughout the year. Spread it out. Do more audit activities throughout the year and get more detailed and dive into the details when you're doing those. Challenge yourself every time you're doing it. Think of that vertical audit process that BRCGS talks about. Think about expanded sampling when you're doing these things. So ensuring that you're really, really challenging yourself when you're doing it. I also strongly recommend that you get the audit standard itself and get that as a tool for your audits. Use the entire requirements that are built into there, all the clauses, and ensuring that you're satisfying all of those themselves. Do not just audit yourself against your written programs. Ensure that you are in compliance with those requirements. So that being said, that's everything on my side. So I really appreciate what you guys did, and I'm going to release it back to Paula here.
Thank you so much, Chris. That was wonderful and really informative. So we have come to the Q&A period. So I'm going to be inviting Barry and Chris to turn on their mics, and we're going to answer some questions that have come up. Please note again, we are going to do our best to answer as many questions as we can. But if we don't get to you, just remember that we will be sure to send a representative to contact you at a later time. So Barry and Chris, are you guys ready to get started?
Absolutely. I'm ready to go.
Fantastic. So I have one question here. What do I do if I don't agree with an auditor's finding during the audit?
I'll take that one, Barry.
Sure.
So this is a regular question that comes up. So easiest thing is heading it off at the pass. The expectations of the audit should be brought up and clarified at an opening meeting. So I would ensure that you as sites, if the auditor does not initiate this conversation, you initiate it as well. These happen between friends. You're going to have disagreements, and it may be a minor understanding that isn't there. Clearly understand that non-conformances are going to be brought up at the time of observation. And that really if there is a disagreement, it cannot interrupt the rest of the audit activity. So we may get to a point where, okay, we're going to table it, and every single CB has a complaints, disputes, and appeals process, which that can layer through on that end. And if there is an unsatisfactory situation that way after you're dealing with your certification body, you can always end up going through BRCGS if that is required.
Excellent, thank you. Another question that I have here, what are some challenges with programs that rely heavily on final product testing?
I'll take that one, Chris, if you don't mind.
You got it, buddy.
Sure, thank you. So there are a lot of programs that do rely on final product testing, and we find the biggest challenge with that is that it's not reliable enough. The only way for product testing to be a viable means of product assurance would be to test every single product, which we know is not practical. Again, many sites use outside labs to conduct required tests. So aside from the cost of testing, labs are also exposed to the same market conditions that our industry faces. And obviously today, in light of the pandemic, many labs are working with reduced staff and limiting the number of tests being run. So even in-house testing may be challenging with supply chain disruptions and potential rationing of testing supplies. So we do find that products that do rely on end product testing don't seem to fare as well, just mainly because of limitations in testing.
Perfect. Next question I have listed here. Someone had asked that their site is in the US, but customers ship products across all of North America. So what trademarks can they actually get on their packaging?
So the three trademarks that we actually have in the GFCP are the Beyond Celiac trademark for use in the USA, the Canadian Celiac Association trademark obviously for use in Canada, and we have our own BRCGS informed gluten-free trademark, which is intended for use in the rest of the world. We also have an agreement in place with Acelmex in Mexico to use their trademark in that market too. Those are the three trademarks that are available. Obviously, if you want to ship your products to Canada, you'd be well advised to use the Canadian trademark. If you're shipping product to the USA, then the Beyond Celiac trademark is available to you. Both trademarks do come in a colored version and a black and white version. So if you feel that your product packaging doesn't meet the or doesn't match rather the color palette of the individual trademarks, you can always go with a black and white version, which is looks just as nice on packaging.
All right, thank you. Another question that came in here: if I want to become a gluten-free auditor, how can I do that?
Chris, these are all coming in for me.
They're all yours, but you're making my life easy, man. I'm just kind of kicking back here, so
yeah, you've
it's
done your
all
bit
good.
apparently. So we do have requirements for auditors, and they're listed in Appendix 1 of the standard. So that breaks down who is eligible to become an auditor. Anybody can take the gluten-free auditor training. We often see sites put their QA manager through the auditor training so that they can internally audit the program as well. But any auditor who has a valid lead auditor certificate is eligible to conduct audits, but anybody can take the training. And as I said, the training is available on our website, in our bookshop. So yeah, it's there are some requirements. As I said, they are listed in Appendix 1. There's a couple of experiential requirements. Recognized lead auditor certificate, 5 years of experience in auditing food safety management systems. So these are requirements for people who want to conduct audits. But to take the actual training, as I said, there are no requirements to be able to take the training. Anyone can take it.
To piggyback on that, internal audits, auditor training, just saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Very good. Speaking about training, someone had actually asked if there is training material, if there's any certifications that you can get, whether through BRCGS or through BV.
In regards to just lead into auditor training?
Not
Or
specified. They asked about just training materials, I believe just for the gluten-free program.
Again, I think Manish was talking about that the standard itself is available for download off of the BRCGS website. So really suggest you going on that end. We don't have any standalone information on that side because we feel that that document is extremely robust into what the details are required. And then there's that BRCGS auditor training that you have that provides some further documentation for you to use if needed, that'll help explain the reasons why behind controls and things like that. I'm not sure if you guys have anything else on your side.
Also, we have like our training academy too. So anytime that you ever have questions regarding any of our standards or any specific programs, taking a look at the training academy is a great way to see what's available. This is an interesting question. One person actually asked about how to know if they even have gluten intolerances or what to kind of do about finding out more information on the consumer aspect of finding gluten-free products. Barry, I think you could speak to this probably with our partnerships with the celiac associations.
Yeah, exactly. So if there's no, I mean, gluten intolerance is something that's quite difficult to to pinpoint. So the only I would suggest that going through some sort of restriction diet, so keeping certain sources of gluten away from your diet for a certain period, and see if you feel better after that. I believe there's a blood test that you can get, and a bit more intrusive is the stomach biopsy, but that's really a last resort, just to test if you actually have some form of celiac disease or a gluten intolerance. So I think the first thing you should do is start restricting or start eliminating sources of gluten from your diet and see if you feel any better. There's the Association of European Celiac Societies, the AOECS. You may be able to get some information from them, or there may be a reliable Spanish Celiac Association that you could contact too.
Fantastic. Barry, this is directed to you. How to register to BRCGS to access study material? Do you mind walking them through that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for any information about the program, brcgs.com is our website. That would be the best place to start. Follow the links to the gluten-free certification program. There's a sort of get started page where you can learn about the process to achieve the certification to the program. There's certain document downloads. There's the quick start guide. You can obviously download the standard to become familiar with it. So yeah, I really encourage you to go to our website. That's where you find the main resources in the program.
Wonderful, thank you so much. So we're just about getting to 3 o'clock, so I think this is a great time to wrap up. If you have any other additional questions, please feel free to contact us. As you can see here on the page, we have a contact for BRCGS. If you want to implement the gluten-free certification program, to contact Manish, and his information is available there. Or if you want to get your GSCP audit or get more understandings about that, please feel free to reach out to Kimberly Knoll. Thank you everybody for joining us today. We really appreciate your time, and we'll see you next time.